16-year-old Dena Dean left for work that June evening in 1998 with plans to meet someone. She promised her mother she'd be home by 10:30, but Dena never returned. Hours later, her car sat abandoned in a desolate parking lot, and there was no sign of her anywhere. Days passed in agonizing silence until a grim discovery shattered any hope her family had left. What happened to Dena in those lost hours? Who was she meeting that night? And could that encounter have sealed her fate? This case remains unsolved after more than 2 decades, despite emerging theories and chilling leads. Is the truth hidden in plain sight, or is someone keeping a terrible secret? Let's uncover the strange and tragic story of Dena Dean, a case that still haunts Tulsa to this day. Join me for another strange, odd, and mysterious story here at Odd Mystery Stories. Dena Dean was the kind of person people remembered, kind-hearted, responsible, and full of life. At just 16 years old, she had a bright future ahead. Born and raised in Tulsa, Oklahoma, she was the youngest child in a loving, close-knit family. Her parents, Larry and Dena Dean, had instilled strong values in their children, and Dena carried those with pride. She had a bond with her family that went beyond the usual teenage dynamic, often confiding in her parents and spending time with them. Her interests were a blend of youthful excitement and dedication. She played the clarinet in her high school band, finding joy in both music and the camaraderie it brought her with friends. On weekends, she had a special tradition with her father, attending car races together, cheering on the drivers with a shared sense of thrill and adventure. This was her way of connecting, a reminder of the unbreakable bond that they had. The initials in her name, D.A.D., is a proud fact that her dad often mentions, Dad. Dena wasn't just about hobbies. She had a strong work ethic. Taking a job at Arby's, known for her dependability, she often filled her shifts with a smile and never hesitated to help others. Friends and coworkers described her as someone who was always positive, someone who lit up the room when she walked in. For a teenager, she carried a maturity that made her both approachable and respected. Despite her responsibilities, Dena was still a teenager with dreams. Like any girl her age, she had close friendships and was in a relationship that, at the time, seemed like typical young love. But there were also hints of complexity, hidden tensions in her life that others may not have fully understood. Was it possible that these unseen elements played a role in what would later unfold? Dena's life was a delicate balance of joy and responsibility. To those around her, she was a young woman filled with promise, someone who brought light into the lives of others. But that light was extinguished far too soon, leaving a void that has yet to be filled. The mystery of what happened to Dena Dean is only beginning to unfold. June 6, 1998 started off like any other day for Dena Dean. By nightfall, her family's world would be turned upside down. That evening, Dena was working her usual shift at a local Arby's. She clocked out around 9 p.m., telling her family she had plans to meet someone. She reassured her mother, Diana, that she'd be home by 10:30. Nothing out of the ordinary. But 10:30 came and went. Dena didn't walk through the door. At first, her parents didn't panic. Maybe she had lost track of time or stopped to talk with her friends. Yet, as more time passed, an uneasy feeling crept in. It wasn't like Dena to be home late without calling. Larry and Diana reached out to friends and anyone who might know where she was, but no one had seen or heard from her. By midnight, worry turned to fear. One of her friends called her parents home to report that their daughter's car was still at the shopping center where she planned to meet her boyfriend. Her parents drove to the shopping center, hoping to find some sign of her. What they found instead only deepened the mystery. Dena's car sat in the parking lot, untouched. The doors were unlocked, and her purse was still inside. The windows were all down. Inside was a receipt showing that she had shopped at the grocery store earlier that evening and even went through the checkout line where her boyfriend worked. Last, and strangely, was a still uneaten sandwich in the car. It was as though she had vanished without a trace. There were no signs of a struggle, no clues to indicate where she might have gone. Her family knew then that something very bad may have happened to Dena. The Dean family immediately contacted the authorities, but the response was frustratingly slow. At first, Dena was treated as a potential runaway, something her parents knew in their hearts wasn't true. Dena had no reason to run away. She was a responsible young lady and had made it clear that she intended to be home that night. Despite the family's insistence that something was terribly wrong, hours passed with no significant action. The first 24 hours after a disappearance are critical, but in Dena's case, valuable time was lost. As the search finally began to intensify, so did the questions. Who was Dena planning to meet that night? Why had she been so secretive about it? And how could she simply vanish from a parking lot in a busy shopping area? For the Dean family, those first agonizing hours were filled with a mix of hope and dread. Hope that Dena would walk through the door at any minute, and dread that something far more sinister had taken place. Unfortunately, their worst fears would soon be realized. The search for Dena stretched on for days, with her family holding on to fragile hope that she might still be alive. Volunteers, law enforcement, and loved ones scoured the area around the Town West shopping center, but there were no immediate leads. The fear of the unknown weighed heavily on everyone involved. Each passing hour made it harder to believe that she would be found safe. On June 12, 1998, 6 days after her disappearance, a grim discovery was made. Dena's body was found near a pond in a secluded area of West Tulsa, about 2 miles from where her car had been abandoned. The scene provided little in the way of answers. Her remains were in an advanced state of decomposition due to the time that had passed and the heat of early summer, complicating the investigation even further. The medical examiner classified her death as a homicide, though the exact cause of death could not be determined. There were no immediate signs of trauma that could explain what happened. For investigators, this created a significant hurdle. Without a clear cause of death or substantial physical evidence, piecing together Dena's final moments became an uphill battle. The discovery shattered any hope Dena's family had left. The vibrant, compassionate young girl they knew and loved was gone, and the circumstances surrounding her death raised more questions than answers. Who had taken Dena to that desolate location, and why? And what happened between the time she left the shopping center and the moment her life was cruelly taken? Law enforcement ramped up their efforts in the wake of this discovery, but early leads were scarce. The lack of a clear crime scene or witnesses made it difficult to pinpoint a suspect. Investigators were left trying to retrace Dena's last movements, searching for anyone who might have seen or spoken to her during that fateful night. For her family, the discovery was both a heartbreaking loss and a call to action. They knew justice for Dena wouldn't come easily, but they were determined to find out what happened. In a case that seemed to grow colder with each passing day, they held on to the hope that someone, somewhere, knew the truth. But for now, the mystery deepened. The early investigation into Dena's murder was hindered by the lack of physical evidence. Without a cause of death and no eyewitnesses coming forward, law enforcement struggled to find solid leads. Initial theories revolved around Dena's personal relationships, with detectives questioning her friends, co-workers, and anyone who may have interacted with her in the hours leading up to her disappearance. However, progress was slow. Investigators faced mounting frustration, not only from the lack of evidence, but also from the missteps in the early response to her disappearance. The hours lost treating her as a potential runaway had likely cost them crucial opportunities to collect time-sensitive evidence. Despite the setback, the Tulsa County Sheriff's Office continued to work the case, interviewing those closest to Dena and piecing together a timeline of her final hours. By 2016, nearly 2 decades after her death, the investigation received renewed focus when the Tulsa County Sheriff's Office formed a cold case task force. Retired detectives Mike Huff and Doc Shannon, who had extensive experience with unsolved cases, took charge of reviewing every detail of Dena's life. They brought new energy and expertise to the case that had long haunted the local community. Through this renewed investigation, detectives discovered chilling information that had previously gone unverified. Witnesses came forward with details indicating that Dena had planned to meet someone she trusted the night she vanished. Speculation grew around the idea that this meeting had gone horribly wrong. Could someone close to her have orchestrated her death? The task force also examined rumors surrounding Dena's boyfriend at the time. Some witnesses claimed that Dena may have told him about a possible pregnancy, which, if true, could have been a motive. Investigators began to zero in on the potential connection between the boyfriend and his family, particularly his father and uncle, as persons of interest. These leads, however, were difficult to substantiate without concrete evidence. Despite these promising developments, no arrests have been made. The investigation remained at a standstill, hindered by the passage of time and the absence of direct forensic evidence tying any suspects to the crime. Detectives continued to press forward, hoping that someone with crucial information would finally break their silence. For Dena's family, the investigation's long delays were agonizing. They had waited years to see justice served, enduring these false leads and fading hope. Still, with the cold case task force's involvement, they believed that the truth could one day be uncovered. But the question remained, would the answers they sought ever come to light? As the investigation into Dena's murder progressed, attention increasingly focused on individuals within her social circle, particularly her boyfriend at the time, Michael Converse, and his family members, Father Robert Converse and Uncle Stephen Converse. In the days leading up to her disappearance, Dena confided in friends that she had informed Michael of a possible pregnancy. This revelation is believed to have been a significant factor in the events that followed. On the evening of June 6, 1998, Dena planned to meet Michael after his work shift at Marvin's food store. She assured her mother that that meeting would be brief and that she would return home by 10:30 p.m. Tragically, Dena never made it home. Initial interviews with Michael and his father Robert revealed inconsistencies. Both denied that Michael had any relationship with Dena, with Michael asserting that he was bowling at the time of her disappearance, a claim that was later corroborated. However, further investigation uncovered Robert had arrived at Marvin's food store at around 9:40 p.m. on the night Dena vanished, approximately 20 minutes before her disappearance. The purpose of his presence remains unexplained. In addition to these inconsistencies, Michael underwent 2 polygraph tests during the investigation and failed both. Despite this, Michael continued to assert his innocence, and his alibi was confirmed by multiple sources. However, the failed polygraph tests have remained a point of suspicion, fueling ongoing theories about his potential involvement or knowledge of what happened to Dena. As mentioned previously, the 2016 Tulsa County Sheriff's Office Cold Case Task Force to re-examine Dena's case learned through interviews with new witnesses that upon hearing of Dena's alleged pregnancy, Robert hurried back to Tulsa to confront her. Witnesses also reported seeing Robert and his brother Stephen in a red truck near the location where Dena was last seen. One witness recounted that Robert appeared at her residence the night Dena disappeared, covered in mud and requesting to have his clothes cleaned. Further complicating matters, another witness reported that Stephen once threatened Robert, warning him against discussing the case. These accounts prompted investigators to obtain DNA samples from Stephen to explore potential connections to the crime scene. Despite these developments, the case remains unsolved. The combination of circumstantial evidence and witness testimonies has not yet provided the definitive proof needed to bring charges against any individual. The Dean family continues to seek justice, holding on to hope that the truth will eventually come to light. The involvement of Michael Converse and his family in the investigation underscores the complex web of relationships and secrets that have long obscured the truth behind Dena's untimely death. As the investigation persists, the focus remains on uncovering the facts and ensuring that those responsible are held accountable. Other lines of inquiry explored whether someone else entirely outside of her known circle may have targeted her. Could a stranger have abducted her and killed her after seeing her alone in the parking lot? The possibility remained open, though less likely. Given the lack of evidence pointing to a random foul play, Dena's case bore no resemblance to other abduction cases in the region, leaving this avenue cold. Having explored details around the location where her disappearance happened, some reports have referred to a significant presence of drugs and prostitution very close to this location. Reports are that this area was not a completely safe area of the city. As years have passed, each theory began to feel like a dead end. Theories surrounding jealousy, fear of responsibility, and potential silencing of secrets continued to dominate the investigation's narrative. Yet, without critical evidence to confirm or disprove these ideas, detectives remained in a frustrating state of limbo. The emergence of new witnesses in recent years has reignited interest in these theories. Some claim to have knowledge that could implicate individuals close to Dena, but conflicting accounts make it difficult for investigators to separate fact from rumor. The murky web of half-truths and speculation has prolonged the mystery, leaving Dena's family in limbo. Which theory holds the truth? Did someone she trusted betray her that night? Or is the truth hidden behind a series of lies and secrets that have yet to unravel? This case remains haunted by these questions, as investigators continue their search for the elusive missing piece that will finally bring the answers they are seeking and Dena's family have long waited for. For the Dean family, life has never been the same since that fateful June evening in 1998. Larry and Diana Dean have spent more than 2 decades of an unrelenting pursuit of justice for their daughter. The unanswered questions surrounding Dena's death weigh heavily on them every single day. How could someone take the life of such a vibrant young woman and leave her family in a sea of grief and uncertainty? From the beginning, the Deans knew Dena hadn't run away. They fought against the dismissive attitudes early on, pushing investigators to treat her case with urgency that it deserved. When her body was found, their mission became clear: finding out who was responsible and ensuring they faced the full force of justice. However, with little evidence and shifting leads, that mission would prove painfully slow. The family has kept Dena's memory alive through public vigils and memorials. They've spoken to the media countless times, refusing to let her story fade from the public eye. Larry Dean has often expressed the emotional toll the case has taken on their family, describing sleepless nights, ongoing nightmares, and the haunting knowledge that someone out there knows exactly what happened to Dena. Their persistence paid off when the Cold Case Task Force was formed in 2016. Finally, it felt as though real progress might be made. The Deans met with the detectives regularly, offering any insight they could and staying updated on every new development. Though they were grateful for the renewed focus, they knew the odds were against them. Cold cases are notoriously difficult to solve, and the longer time stretches on, the harder it becomes to gather the evidence needed for a conviction. For Larry and Diana Dean, the search for justice for their daughter has been relentless, but it also has come at a significant personal cost. The strain of Dena's tragic death took an emotional toll that extended beyond the investigation. In the years following her murder, the weight of grief and the slow progress in the case began to fracture their lives. Eventually, the marriage between Larry and Diana dissolved, a heartbreaking consequence of the trauma they endured. Diana has since spoken openly about how the all-consuming quest for answers impacted her family. She admits that in her single-minded focus on Dena's case, she unintentionally neglected her other 3 children, a painful realization that led her to reevaluate her priorities. While she has made efforts to heal and rebuild, her commitment to finding justice for Dena remains as strong as ever. Despite the divorce, both parents have continued to support investigative efforts. They attend vigils, participate in interviews, and collaborate with law enforcement to keep Dena's case in the public eye. The Cold Case Task Force's renewed effort in 2016 offered a glimmer of hope, though the family knows the odds remain steep. For Larry and Diana, this journey is not just about seeking accountability. It's about honoring their daughter's memory and ensuring that her story is never forgotten. Through all the heartbreak, one thing is clear: they will not give up. Both parents believe someone still knows the truth, and they hold on to the hope that one day the truth will surface. Until then, they continue their fight. Together, though now on separate paths, the quest for justice remains their enduring connection, binding them in grief, determination, and an unwavering love for their daughter. More than 2 decades have passed since the disappearance and murder of Dena Dean, yet the case remains unsolved, leaving a heavy shadow over the Dean family and the Tulsa community. The investigation has seen moments of hope, but time and time again, those hopes have been dashed by a lack of evidence and the ever-present silence of key witnesses. Theories abound, pointing fingers at those who were once close to Dena, but none have been substantiated enough to bring charges. Despite the odds, Tulsa County Sheriff's Office Cold Case Task Force remains committed to finding the truth. For Dena's parents, Larry and Diana, time has not softened their pain. Their days are filled with a mix of grief, anger, and determination. They are haunted by the questions that still go unanswered. Who was Dena planning to meet that night? Did someone she trusted betray her? Or did an unforeseen confrontation lead to her death? These questions have fueled endless speculation within the true crime community. Is the truth concealed by fear, guilt, or misplaced loyalty? Or has the case been hampered by errors that occurred in those crucial early hours after she vanished? The answers remain elusive, leaving both investigators and the public wondering when, or if, justice will ever be served. This story serves as a chilling reminder of how quickly a life can be stolen and how difficult it can be to find the truth in the aftermath. Cases like Dena's highlight the importance of vigilance, community involvement, and never giving up on those who can no longer speak for themselves. If you or anyone you know has information about the murder of Dena Dean, authorities are urging you to come forward. Even the smallest detail could be the key to breaking this case wide open. Perhaps someone out there holds the piece of the puzzle that could finally bring closure, not only to the Dean family, but to a community that has carried the weight of her loss for far too long. Until that day comes, her story remains one of unanswered questions, enduring sorrow, and the unrelenting search for justice. Hey, thank you for joining me in another odd mystery. My name is Vince. If you enjoyed this story, you might also be interested in the story of the mysterious case of Ellen Goldberg. You'll find the link to that story in the upper right corner of your screen. Your support helps keep these stories alive, giving the affected families the hope they seek. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And for those who like to further support the channel, be sure to check out our online store for exclusive merch and more. I appreciate you. Thank you.